The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here along with Dan Rylance, and we're very pleased to welcome back someone who's been on the show a couple of times in the past for different topics, and Jan Butterbrodt is here this evening to talk about something that she does professionally, and that is some psychotherapist work, but we're primarily going to focus on the healing arts tonight as one of the things. You know, everybody in society is so stressed out these days, and so we're pleased to have you here to talk about some things that people can do, Jan, to kind of just chill out, kind of calm down, chill out a little bit, and yet at the same time better their lives, hopefully. So you are a psychotherapist. I was looking at your business card here. You've got a whole lot of initials behind your name, and we were only able to get so many up on the screen, but MS, I'm assuming that's Masters of Social Work?
In Science,
Okay, all right. LMFT.
Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist.
Okay. LCSW.
Licensed Clinical Social Worker.
All right. And LPC.
Licensed Professional Counselor.
All right. You got a lot of initials. You've taken a lot of education to get where you are.
Actually, I'm old, is what what it says is that I've been around for a long time, and most of it really is because I had difficult cases and went on for additional training. And if you're here long enough, eventually you start adding some more alphabets
Sure.
on. So
Well, Dan and I are old too, but we don't have those kinds of
but
initials
this is,
behind our
I really
name.
want to compliment Cheryl for having you. We really need this type of session. We've been interviewing candidates for every office, you know, from county executive down to school board. We're stressed out.
you're stressed.
Yeah,
stressed.
so
We're
this
stressed
is
too.
perfect. So unstress us.
Well, thank you for having
Yeah.
me. Yes.
So, you know, one thing, and we're going to be putting up throughout the show a website here for the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. And so we do want to talk about hypnosis as one of the things. And I don't know, you're the pro here, so do you want to start there with hypnosis, or is there some other place you want to start?
No, most certainly. And I think how the show came about was in response to, maybe about a month or so ago, there was a gentleman coming through our area who did hypnosis, and I call it the one-night stand, who comes on in and does hypnosis, and usually it's a reasonable cost, and by the way, buy all the materials, and then leaves and is out of town. So we kind of talked about having, being concerned and being wary of who is all out there saying that they can do some things, but do they have experience? And more importantly, do they have accountability? And I think we also talked about, too, of when you said stressed out, you know, welcome to being normal, because right now there are a lot of stressed out people. And I think a lot has to do with the economy. Certainly we're in Wisconsin here, it has to do with the weather.
Sure.
This has been a very difficult season, and it's been a long season, and people are getting weary of it. And again, without having a lot of money, and now with not knowing how stable the jobs are, we're seeing more and more anxiety. Also, too, I've been a firm believer that the further we go out from September 11th, the more anxiety we're seeing and the more depression we're seeing, because it's kind of like a black cloud overhanging our heads of, is the world safe or isn't it? Is our neighborhood safe? Or
Really, now, I would have thought differently about that one.
We're too far away from it now, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you even see the, the airlines loosening their, their security requirements a little bit. It still is pretty tight, but, they're loosening them just a smidge. And so I would have thought
Yeah,
that
me too.
people would have been a little less stressed out about terrorist activities.
And a new president who isn't using those words anymore.
Yes.
Yeah,
Whereas it was almost every day.
yeah.
So
that's-
why do you think 9/11 is lingering so long?
Well, we still have some unsettled areas in the world. And we have, again, an economy that right now is unsettled.
Certainly.
So I think all those, add to that anxiety and that concern of what does the future hold and what does my future hold. And so again, any way a person can manage that anxiety and manage that stress, that's so important because it has an impact on them. And it certainly has an impact on their relationships. We're seeing that with marriages, and we're seeing that with children. And I work with a number of teachers, and many of the teachers are coming in and saying that they're seeing the children quite anxious and
Okay.
worried.
Well, when we think of healing arts, we think of massage therapy, we think of aromatherapy, we think of, hypnosis, even chiropractic is a type of holistic medicine. So what would be a catch-all phrase for kind of to describe what healing arts are?
Complementary medicine, I oftentimes refer to it as, is in Dr. Oz, who's very popular with Oprah and now seen on a number of talk shows and cited in a number of articles, has been a promoter of it for many, many years. And hypnosis, as you said, massage therapy, acupuncture, and I see it as complementary approaches, and it's treating the whole person, not just piece by piece, but the whole person.
So kind of a complement to traditional Western medicine, I guess, is what you're saying. There's some who think that traditional medicine is the only way to go, and then there's others clear at the other end of the spectrum who say, I don't take prescription drugs, I don't get vaccinations other than the ones that are required, I don't do this and I don't do that, I just do everything holistic. And for myself, because I've been victim of a few accidents in my life, and have had some of these different types of therapies and treatments, I have always found that a combination of the two, as you're saying, it seems to work best. At least for me, it did. So now, one thing that I think we have to be clear about is that there are, as you said, people like yourself who have undergone a lot of rigorous education, taken a battery of tests probably to get to the point where you're at, and then you have other people who just hang out shingles, and it differs from state to state. What the requirements are. What is the requirement in Wisconsin, Jan, for people who can and cannot do some of these healing arts, if you will?
In regards to hypnosis, that to be a member of the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, you need to be a licensed professional in your discipline. So that would be either in medicine, in dentistry, in nursing, in counseling and psychology. And then after that, you go through a number of training programs. And during that time, when you're in basic training, you are being observed and you are being supervised so as to hone your skill, but also to get that guidance in that direction as to how to do it better. And then as you move through it, you go into intermediate and then advanced. And then after you have completed a number of hours, 40 hours I believe it is, and you have kind of gotten the stamp of approval from the body, then you can become certified. And again, you have to meet certain requirements to do that. Once you're certified, then again you have to have ongoing education and ongoing accountability.
Okay.
So you're being monitored. And again, I think that's very important, is that accountability, and that you're required to hone your skills and learn what's happening, because the field's changing.
Sure.
With modern technology,
Yeah.
we're learning a lot more now, neuroplasticity and the brain that heals itself, the brain that changes. So we're learning a lot more, and so to have that ongoing education, I think, is so important.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
You want to move right into hypnosis?
I want to ask a question about stress.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all hear this, but until I was 45, I never heard this term. But people will say to you, I'm stressed out. Don't we hear that all the time?
Mm-hmm.
I'm stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does that mean? I mean, I know it means different things, but, you're in this practitioner thing. What does that normally mean to you when some person says, I'm stressed out?
It could, again, finding out what is stressing them out,
Yeah.
what's behind it, because you're right, I mean, that's a general term.
It is.
And then to find out what is behind it. Is it situational? Is it maybe a difficulty at work?
Mm-hmm.
Is it an uncertainty if they're going to be having a job or not? Could it be relationship? That maybe there's some difficulties in the relationship. Maybe there's some parenting challenges. Maybe there's some money challenges. Maybe there's some health issues. And maybe it's a combination of all of the above.
What if your friend says to you, quote unquote, I'm stressed out? What would you recommend ought to be a response?
Again, finding out
Okay.
why they're stressed.
Okay.
And also finding out, do they have some coping skills? What's helped them in the past when they've been stressed out? Because we all get stressed.
Sure.
And many times we'll do some things that will help. Either go for a walk. I always say walk the cobwebs out of your mind.
Sure.
Many times I'll say I'm a firm believer in suitcase therapy. Pack a bag and get out of town for a weekend. For an overnight stay. Because again, sometimes it gives you a different perspective. The problems will still be there when you come back, but sometimes you get a different perspective of it. I encourage not to medicate
Okay.
through alcohol or through drugs.
Sure.
Or food. Sometimes we do that. But finding out what worked in the past. And perhaps those things that worked in the past may not be working now. So again, taking a look at that. But sometimes too, again, if somebody's been kind of battered and hit, and it kind of wears down their resiliency. So yeah, but then also too, when somebody says that they're stressed, is there a physical component to it? Are they having an upset stomach? Are there some sleep disorders? Are they having difficulty concentrating? I call it whiteouts. I'm a certified drug alcohol counselor, and many times we talk of blackouts, a chemically induced, state of amnesia.
Sure.
But when we're under a great deal of stress, we also it'll be difficult for us to concentrate, it'll be difficult for us to remember things, and it'll be difficult to make decisions. So I call them the whiteouts. And to find out if they're having some difficulty with that. As a sex therapist, sometimes too, when somebody's stressed out, that's going to affect, their sex life too. So finding out what's causing it, what's worked in the past, and then is there a physical component to it as well.
Usually when people say that once, I kind of just come back with humor or something. But if they say it 2 or 3 times, then I'm thinking, well, maybe I should be more serious and maybe, because people are pretty private. I mean, and it's kind of just a cliche that everyone, I'm really stressed out. Well, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. No, just a bad day at work or something. But if they keep saying it, then it seems to me as a friend, you ought to, at that point, then say, well, maybe we ought to talk about that more. Yeah. But let's talk about hypnosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, most certainly. Many times when clients come in, maybe they've read something or they've heard something on television that it really works. But many times there still will be this hesitancy. I'll say it's kind of like excitement and trepidation. Because maybe what they've seen on television has been what I call a stage show. presentation, where somebody is, on the count of 3 gotten up and run around and or strummed a guitar like Elvis or
Or they're
something like that.
walking around in a hypnotic trance.
Yes, exactly. Or doing some really strange, bizarre things, and the audience is laughing. And I reassure him that none of that is going to happen. As a matter of fact, by belonging to the American Association of Clinical Hypnosis, we take an oath that we will never do that. That's an entertainer many times working a crowd, or they've got plans. And we utilize hypnosis, again, complementing what we're already doing, whether it be psychotherapy, whether it be dentistry, whether it be medicine or nursing or whatever the discipline is. And we utilize hypnosis and complement what we're already doing. But I enlighten clients that it's really a double layering of awareness, because there's this myth that it should be total amnesia, that they're going to be totally unaware of what's going on. And I say, no, what we're going to experience more is I like to medium trance, so they're going to, at some level, know exactly what's going on. And I say that's good protection for them, because they will know what's going on, and there's no hocus pocus. But I also say, quite frankly, it's good protection for me too, because on some level they're going to know what's going on, and there's no hocus pocus. I say, really, it's no different than if you've ever had the experience of maybe watching a movie or watching a show or a sports program, or the Packers, or now basketball or what have you, or reading a book. And you were so laser focused in on it that maybe you heard a clock ticking in the back, or if you have pets, maybe their tails switch something off the counter, what have you, and it registered, but you dismissed it because you're so laser focused in on what you're watching or reading or what have you. And so if you've ever experienced something like that, and most of us have, then that is what the hypnosis will be like.
Okay.
And so it's that double layering of awareness. But of anything I do, I love to do hypnosis the most. I've been doing it now for several decades, is because it accesses that part of our mind that can be a helper, and that's the unconscious mind. And it does it by going around the conscious mind that has what I call the yeah-but syndrome. And what I mean by that is if a client comes in and they told me about a situation, I say, well, you really handled that well. Conscious mind being what it is, will oftentimes say, yeah, but I wished I would have done it differently. That's just the conscious mind. So what we do is we greet it. We're going to give it the honor it's due, but we're going to go around it and plug into the unconscious mind. And so we can make suggestions. Many times we can change the picture. And many times the client will then hear compliments. They'll be able to access possibilities that they weren't able before. And in the hypnosis, I'm a firm believer in what's called perceptual patterns of learning, that we all learn so totally different. Some people are visual learners, they need to see things. Other are auditory learners, they need to hear things. And other are kinesthetic, hands-on experiencer. And so in the hypnosis, I integrate pieces of all those so as to find out what arena the client learns best in. And they're giving me information, and we're tweaking it and we're calibrating it so that it's more successful for them.
Do you have a normal length of time for a session? I mean, you wouldn't go over a certain length of time?
It all depends on what we're utilizing the hypnosis for.
Okay.
If somebody's coming in for weight management or to stop smoking, and oftentimes if it's a gal coming in to stop smoking, we'll integrate both. Because many times there's a change in metabolism, and many gals will go back to smoking if they're starting to put on a lot of weight. So we'll integrate the two together. I have a 3-session model when it's weight loss or when it's smoking cessation. And that's what I have found most successful. And like I said, I've been doing it for a few years.
So you're going in to do a particular thing on your therapy, on your hypnosis. You're not going around. You already know what the issue is, and you're going in kind of to explore it more. Or?
With if it's to stop smoking or it's for weight loss, we're going in
Specifically for that.
Specifically for that. Now, however, It is also, hypnosis is very, very helpful for other issues, nail biting, trichotillomania, hair pulling, pain reduction. I've worked with a number of physicians where they have gotten a patient to a certain point, and they're needing something else, and they've maxed out on the medication, and the hypnosis can be very, very helpful. I've worked with people to help prepare them for surgery. It's very helpful for sports enhancement, performance enhancement. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. A number of applications. Burn. Again, changing the temperature of the body. Trauma. Also to containment. Let's say a person is having flashbacks, or they're really having difficulty with intrusive thoughts. So we can do some containment so they can function. Number of different things. Phobias, and I always integrate self-esteem with it. And
That's a really wide range.
yes, yes.
So it can be used for pretty much everything,
Yeah,
is I
yeah.
guess what we're hearing you say. What if you have someone who, you mentioned phobias, they are taking a flight somewhere, but they're afraid to fly, and they don't necessarily want to go the route of tranquilizers or whatever. They'd rather do something a little bit more holistic or natural. I mean, obviously, you could help with that.
Oh,
it
yes,
sounds
we
like.
have.
But what would be the model or protocol for something like that? How many sessions and how long would the sessions be?
Again, every case varies.
Sure,
and
just
stuff,
on
but
average.
I'd say about 3. When
Okay.
it's something specific, and let's say it is flying, and typically a person will put off. They'll say, "Yeah, I need to work on that," but they'll put it off until there's something coming up, and they really do want to fly to that event or that vacation, what have you. So they'll come in, and again, finding out what arena they learn best in, then we'll calibrate. But typically 3 sessions, and the reason being is the first time a person comes in, there is going to be kind of that guardedness, but also too, we're on a learning curve. They're learning about me, and I'm learning about them. Sure. And each time they go into hypnosis, they go in at a much deeper level. So we're learning something each time, as I said, to calibrate it and to tweak it. And then at the 3rd time, if they'd like, I'll make them a tape or cut them a CD. And I brought how compact it has now gotten, and this is very, again, very portable, that I'm literally able to make the recording of the session, and it's geared just for them, and then cut them a CD so that they then can put it on their iPod, or again, play it on a CD player, and that is very helpful for flying, because then they can take it. It's helpful if they're going into surgery. It's helpful, to help a person fall asleep, because that was something that I must say I've been pleasantly pleased with. Is that many times when clients have come in for a specific reason, a phobia, a fear, to stop smoking, lose weight, pain issues, whatever the case may be, what has also happened many times is they're saying they're sleeping better. And I had one gal a few years back that came in and she said, I don't have to take sleeping pills anymore. She'd been taking them for 17 years.
Wow.
That's unbelievable, And again, I mean, that we weren't going in for that. We weren't working on that. We were working on some other things. But again, learning, a deeper level of relaxation and calming some things. And I always say getting in harmony, mind, body, soul. It's amazing, what else can happen too. So.
Jen, are these typically 30-minute sessions? Are they hour-long sessions?
Hour sessions to an hour and a half.
Okay.
Now, again, if it's, let's say there's some trauma work that's needing to be done, and possibly somebody had been abused, and they're going back to do some work around that, those will typically be 2 hours. I'm also certified in what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and that's very helpful for trauma situations. And I'll only do that if somebody has learned hypnosis first, mainly because now they've learned a skill, they can calm themselves and take care of themselves when they're out of the office so they still can function. And so those will typically be about an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions.
Okay. You know, I mean, we have to talk about this, or we wouldn't be doing it justice, because there are so many people out there who I'm sure still look at things like this, just like people used to chiropractic medicine. You know, they say, oh, it's a bunch of hocus pocus, this is a bunch of crap, it doesn't work, it's just, you know, they're scam artists, blah, blah, blah. And actually, there are still people who feel that way about chiropractic.
Absolutely. And 20 years ago, insurance companies didn't cover chiropractic.
But they do now.
They do now. And so
Yeah.
I was going to, you know, how well do insurance policies cover the type of services that you provide?
Yeah.
Well, it varies.
Okay.
And again, partly because of being a licensed professional, we're utilizing a number of other techniques and tools as well. So this may be, you know, integrated into what we're already doing. But if there's coverage for psychotherapy, outpatient mental health coverage,
Then that would include you.
Then
Yeah, good.
Okay. What do you say, Jan, to people who do have this attitude that this is just a bunch of silliness and it can't help? I mean, I'm sure you've encountered them.
oh goodness, yes, yes.
So what is your response?
Well, people like Dr. Oz supporting it. You know, again, I know it's credible, and if and most of the patients who have ever experienced it certainly have gained from it, and many times a person like that you're not going to change their mind.
Right.
You're simply not, because as you said, you know, there's still that attitude out there for other modalities.
There are.
And they may not, you know, embrace a chiropractor. So there's a good likelihood they're not going to embrace, you know, some other holistic approaches as well. So, yeah.
Although, you know, I have known a couple people throughout my life who, talking about chiropractic medicine, they just poo-pooed it, but they had exhausted all other options for the most part. And then they just thought, okay, I'm just going to try this. What can it possibly hurt? And just like that, for them it worked. And they became believers. And so sometimes it's just exhausting other options, you know, and other possibilities that leads them to this type of healing. So,
Or a family member. That again, possibly a family member, that they have done everything else. And they're very concerned about that family member, and sometimes that too can make a huge difference, make just a little bit of a dent. And
Do you do massage therapy at all?
No,
You don't
I
do
don't.
that. That's
No.
totally out of, I thought so, but I thought I would ask that. Yeah.
we were going to just do this for a half an hour. Unfortunately, our guest that we were supposed to have on isn't here yet. So are you okay with
I'm okay.
continuing this discussion?
Sure.
Yeah, let's
All right.
go, yeah.
So we'll
Sure.
we'll continue it, and if at such time she shows up, we'll take a break
take a break.
and you know, excuse you and bring her on in. Otherwise, we're just going to keep
We're
going.
gonna keep rolling,
because there's
yeah.
a lot of different things that we can cover here. I mean, I
How
didn't have
long will it take
questions
for you to
prepared, but we'll do
hypnotize
it.
Cheryl?
Actually, I've been through
you?
hypnosis before. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As part of pain management.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I said that I've utilized it for a number of different applications, also for sex therapy, and it's been very, very helpful. But I said I've seen it do just miraculous things when it comes to pain management. When again, nothing else has helped, or else you know they're at that limit of how much medicine they can really have, and it's just simply been amazing.
So, how do people find practitioners such as yourself, Jan? Do they? I mean, obviously through this association, but do they need? If it's going to be covered by insurance, do they need a referral to someone like yourself, or can they just come to you on their own? And because you're a psychotherapist, it may be covered.
They certainly can come on their own. However, some insurances you do need to have that authorization in place. And again, most clinics will help with that. It's a service that we extend that will do some of that calling, because again, when somebody's going through a difficult time in their life, they're not used to navigating the insurance maze, and it really can be a very frustrating maze for us who work with it on a daily basis. And so it's a service that we offer that we can oftentimes help with that and make those calls, and but for other people, they'll just call on their own. And by all means, they certainly can. But you're right. By going to the websites, I've had a number of people Google, where they'll put in a concern. Let's say a loved one. They were talking with a family member in Florida, and so they in another state, and so they literally Googled. They were wanting a therapist that did this, and that, and lo and behold, a few names came up,
Sure.
and they placed the call. And so again, that's another option too and stuff. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in having the accountability. That it isn't that you're just going to leave town
Right.
and you're gone. Because I'm always concerned of anything I do, I love to do hypnosis the most. But I have a regard for it. And I'm always concerned about that one night stand coming in, and let's say they've opened somebody up, and they're gone. That's also why I have a 3-session model, is that I want to make sure how that person is handling it and modulating it.
How do you start the hypnosis? What technique do you use?
I do a very formal induction,
Okay.
and we all have different styles
Okay.
and different techniques, but I have a very formal
Okay.
induction, and literally go through a progressive relaxation, and taking them to a peaceful place
Okay.
in their mind, and again, magnifying that experience. Let's say it's the beach, so there'll be some ocean sounds. Maybe it's the woods, so there'll be like a babbling brook, and there might be some birds, or the wind whistling through the trees, and just magnifying that whole experience. And then the third part is the actual work. And that is where we dump things off at times. We'll create that container to put some things in. Change the picture. Maybe they're wanting to see themselves in a totally different way. But we'll do the work. And then after the work is done, then taking them back for that peaceful place, get a little more R&R. Now there, we can also do what's called time distortion. And let's say that a person really needs a 2-week vacation on a beach, a secluded beach, away from the cell phones, away from pagers, away from the BlackBerry, the internet, the whole gamut of our wonderful technology.
That we couldn't live without.
That we can live without, right. But typically, when we need it the most is the time when we're least able to get it. And so by going to that peaceful place in their mind, we literally, the clock in our mind, we can stretch it out. So just a matter of a few minutes can get stretched out as if it were that 2-week vacation. Or sometimes, let's say somebody's going through a very, very difficult time. And maybe they've got a 3-hour meeting that's just going to be grueling. Or I've used it where it's been the anniversary of something very traumatic. Maybe there's been an accident. Maybe there was a rape on that particular date. And so that particular anniversary, they have a very difficult time. So we'll kind of change some things up in their mind so that they're able to get through it.
Are there
Successfully.
levels of response to hypnosis? Some people almost, you can't get in at all. Others will go through different stages. And there are some that you can't hypnotize?
Oh, you are so right on
Huh?
that one. Oh, yes. And that's typically a question that clients will ask.
Yeah.
Is, can everybody be hypnotized,
Yeah.
or are there some that are unable to? And I say, the experience I've had is I pretty much can divide my clients into three groups here.
Okay.
And the first group are those that cannot. They cannot. And however, they can benefit from learning a deeper level of relaxation. Then there are those at the other end of the spectrum that are so hypnotizable that it's a challenge bringing them back, okay?
Wasn't that interesting?
Okay? And we lovingly refer to them as our space cadets.
Space
But I said most of my clients fall into this middle category. And they learn a skill. And with any skill that we learn, we need to practice. And typically, we need kind of a mentor or a coach.
Sure.
And I said, that's the rule. Because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. But I'll be kind of that coach helping them and practicing. That's why I said each time they go in at a much, much deeper level. So.
Okay. If you have 3 stages of response to hypnosis, do you have stages of getting people out of hypnosis? Some come out totally, others, maybe the space cadets are walking around for the next hour or two still in a semi-state of hypnosis, is that?
And again, I make sure, and you're right, that sometimes I have to keep bringing them up and bringing them up. But I always make sure, that's why I have longer sessions, I want to make sure that they're okay and they're
Before they
functioning
leave.
well before
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
leave.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And then also too, if ever after they leave, I say that typically you'll feel like you're floating. You'll feel like you're on cloud 9. And I said, you know, the rest of the day may take on a rosy glow, and that's the desired effect. And sometimes it lasts for hours, and sometimes it lasts for a few days. And the better you get at it, you know, the longer it'll last. But I said, if ever there's a time when you feel like you're in a fog, you know, like the deer in the headlights, or you're just, you know, somebody says something to you and you're just in a daze, then again, to reassure them what they can do to bring themselves back up. If that happens,
You
especially if
say
I
you
make them
normally
a
have 3
CD.
sessions. How far apart are those?
Again, depending on the circumstances,
Okay.
typically they're on a weekly basis.
Okay, once a week. Yeah.
But I've had situations where somebody has come in from a great distance, so we'll kind of compress it a bit. Or sometimes somebody who travels a great deal, then we'll have to kind of stretch them out. So. Yeah.
I like the idea very much, Jan, of what you said about, you know, taping it and making a CD of it.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that once the 3 sessions, if it is indeed just 3 and not more, once the sessions are over and they have that CD, then they can use that at any point in the future. And if it is something for smoking cessation, for example, would the same kinds of techniques, if they were to listen to the CD, would that help them with something else, like a fear of flying? Or would the approach be a little bit different?
The approach would be a little bit different
Okay.
because of the suggestions that are made. But again, if you know, somebody has a fear of flying or a certain phobia or bridges, then making them a CD specifically for that, and also encouraging them that if they know that they're coming up against a difficult situation, let's say it is somebody who is wanting to stop smoking, and they have successfully completed the program. And I encourage them, you know, if you're going into, let's say, a wedding reception and you know that it's at a banquet hall where they allow smoking, then listen to the tape a few days before. Or I always say, once I've engaged a client, that door is always open, no matter how much time is going on. And for them not to feel that it's a failure if they ever come in, or if they need to pick the tape up again, or even if somehow there's a relapse. To get back on, to just get back on the program. But to be aware that there might be some troubling times, or let's say it is a fear of flying. And you know, they've done wonderfully well, and they've had a number of flights, and then all of a sudden, they're worried, they're anxious about an upcoming one. By all means, listen to the CD, to the tape, or come back in for, I call it the tune-up. We all need it. That's okay. That's not a sign of weakness or anything else. That's just taking good care of yourself and being proactive.
Sure. It's really just a matter of mind over matter, isn't it? I mean, in a large part, because if you are, you know, say you're going to try this, but you're still sort of resistant in your mind to this, it's not going to work at all. But if your mind is open to what it can do for you, even if it may not work for you, you're at least open and receptive to what its possibilities are. They will have greater success with something like this than the person who's just staunchly determined that this is silliness, it's hocus pocus, it's not going to work. Which they probably wouldn't be sitting in your office
Right.
anyway, Jane.
Exactly, they're
you know,
not, but
you know,
yeah,
some people may say, okay, I'm just going to indulge my husband or my wife, you know, and I'll go do this, but you know, they're determined that it's not going to work. So.
But you know, and you said like mind over matter, and sometimes I say it's more working together. And because sometimes I always say we're going to befriend that rebellious child, and find out what the rebellious child has to tell us. And again, it's honoring it, and it's listening to it. And I always say, my mantra, and clients will come back and say, I keep hearing that in my head, is notice what you notice. Don't judge it, just notice it. And because it's giving us a wealth of information. I would say it's kind of giving us these little pieces, and we begin to, you know, start organizing these little pieces, like putting together a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. You know, many times you'll organize it by doing the border, and maybe by, you know, putting certain colors together, and before you know it, you know, you've got a few together and a few more together, and you're starting to put it together. And I say, don't judge it, just notice what you're noticing. So it's that befriending any resistance that we might have. And
I want to ask you about meditation. Is that at all related to your practice and examples of it?
It's that focusing.
Okay.
It's the focusing of attention.
Okay.
And many clients have said that after going through some hypnosis that they are now able to meditate better.
Okay.
But I see meditation and in hypnosis similar in the way that it's training the mind, because the mind is like a puppy dog. Bless its little heart. It likes to wander. And like with a little puppy, you know, you bring it back, you lovingly bring it back, and it likes to wander. And you lovingly bring it back. And the more mature the puppy gets, and the more training the puppy gets, it stays longer. But again, you know, befriending, notice what you notice, there will be some times where a person will be able to focus better, and sometimes they won't. Or sometimes too, their peaceful place, you know, might have been a beautiful sunny beach, clear sky, water just calm, and now all of a sudden there's dark clouds and turbulent water, and I say notice it. Because oftentimes something's brewing, something's stirring up and stuff. So,
What can you do for someone? I know you said that sometimes you can kind of compact these 3 sessions. Say there is a death in the family and someone needs to travel by plane to get to that funeral or that memorial service. If it's a funeral, it's going to happen rather quickly.
Right.
And they're terrified to fly. So what, I mean, is it possible to compact this into a matter of a couple of days?
oh yes, oh
It
yes.
is, okay.
Oh yes, yes. Because again, I mean, that's a driving force. It's a driving force. And it's
Okay.
also a motivator. To get the job done in order to be able to fly and go to that funeral. So it's again amazing, you know, how that will work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we move on to some of these other things? You had mentioned, you know, meditation and so forth. But, you know, everybody may not be able to be hypnotized, as we've learned. Everybody may not think it's for them. What other things can we look at, things that you provide or other practitioners such as yourself provide that can help people de-stress their lives?
Relax. That again, quiet all the, I call it quiet all the chatter. Literally go in a quiet place or go outside in Mother Nature, because that has a wonderful way of giving us a perspective, you know, that the problems, you know, aren't all that big, you know, that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves. But part of it is activating the relaxation response. And Dr. Benson, many years ago, Harvard physician, had developed the relaxation response that really kind of cuts off our fight, flight, and freeze response, and that anxiety and the stress on the heart and the high blood pressure. But that if we can calm ourselves, and if you can go into a peaceful place, as I said, whether that be in a quiet room and not have the TV on, the radio, and get away from all the electronics, and sometimes the energy field, and I call it stray voltage, and unplug, or go outside. And for many people it's going outside. And just literally unplug. Unplug from all the stresses, unplug from all the electronics. And if you can do that several times a day, it really can make a huge difference. And prayer. For many people, it's prayer. Dr. Benson, a few years back, had the first ever symposium at Harvard Medical School on the healing power of prayer. However, there was a bit of resistance on that.
Sure.
So he said, okay, I'm not going to fight. I'm not, we'll work around it. And so he had the first ever symposium on the power of prayer and meditation. But part of that is just kind of calming yourself and quieting yourself, and can make a huge difference.
Just share this briefly with you. I was in a minor seminary for a year and a half.
Okay.
And every morning at 5:30, we had to kneel beside our desk on a wooden floor and try to meditate from 5:30 to whatever time we had to go help priests with the servers serve Mass, usually 5:30 to 6. But it was very, very difficult. Most of us had a hard time staying awake. We were 18, 19, 20-year-old males. And I can't say it was, once in a while. And we would have a reader. One of the monks would be reading something, Thomas à Kempis or something, and we would try to meditate on that. But, I look back at it, I probably didn't put as much into it as I should have. But I remember it because it was such an unusual, at 5:30 in the morning to be listening to this sort of chanter.
Right.
But it was a unique experience.
But also, too, as uncomfortable as that hard floor and kneeling.
Yes.
Rather than, again, comfort. And something that's going to be pleasant and soothing. In chanting, and you've just highlighted something very important, and that is chanting, and it's that bilateral stimulation, drumming.
Yes. Yeah.
That is very, very important.
And very relaxing, isn't it? It's just,
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
almost hypnotic.
It is.
Huh?
And we do it many times without even realizing. It's an oscillating motion that is so helpful. So many times I'll encourage clients to do that on their knees, because again, on the table, most people aren't going to be able to see it if you're in a really uptight meeting, or children at school, especially those who have ADD and they're a little fidgety and stuff. And there's been a tendency to put them at the front of the classroom. No. They're gonna disrupt everybody, okay? Especially those that are visual learners, because oftentimes ADD children are kinesthetic learners.
Right.
Put them in the back of the room.
Exactly.
And let them do those kind of things. It can be real helpful. But again, back to the thing about relaxing, if you can put music where it has kind of that bilateral stimulation, that oscillating, a mother, oftentimes when we pick up a baby, we don't even realize it sometimes, but you just begin to rock. Or if you have a group of gals who have been mothers, and you have a mother with a new baby, and that baby starts crying, it's amazing how sometimes these moms will get to start rocking. They don't even have a baby in their arms, but it's calming and it's soothing. And as a mother, if you've got a child that's a little wound up and a little wiry, that sometimes if you can just gently on their shoulders, if they're standing in line and they're getting fidgety at a department store, if you can just gently begin that, oscillating and that alternating tapping, can be real helpful. So I encourage clients to do that themselves.
Thinking about that with mothers and babies and children, mothers have all sorts of those little calming techniques. And just when you mentioned that, just little things that just kind of keep that little one quiet.
Too bad we don't keep that with us through
Yeah.
our all of our lives.
Yeah.
There are so many people who just simply don't know how to relax.
Right.
They don't know how. We're so tethered to our computers, to our iPods, to our phones, to what have you, that, we don't know how to function without them. And I got to tell you, we took a cruise last year, and it was so nice because I refused to pay those rates that they charge, those ship-to-shore rates for cell calls, and roaming charges topped on all of that, and then you're in another country, and those charges apply, and I said, there's no way. So, we just simply didn't use the cell phones, and so therefore we had no contact with anybody really, other than people on the ship and in where we landed, at port. And it was just so nice to not have to deal with email, no
Yes.
websites, no blogs, no phone
Mhm.
calls,
Mhm.
nothing.
Mhm.
It was one of the most relaxing things in the world.
Mhm.
And yet there were people on board this ship who they could not be torn away from their phones. Now maybe they were talking to friends,
Right.
you know, and they found that relaxing, but I did overhear some people talking business, and it's like, come on, you're on vacation, I would think. Forget about this for right now, relax. But people don't know how in
But it's
some
also,
cases.
it's almost addicting.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're finding more and
Yeah.
more, is that people are getting addicted to, you know, their electronics. And that's a great concern I have about with teenagers and with children. And also, too, you know, now over the time that we've been having them, the impact it's having on relationships. And, you know, again, internet sex, where it's almost easier to have a relationship with somebody that isn't going to call you on the carpet if you don't take the garbage out, you know, isn't going to be upset if you're running a little bit late, or if you didn't get the flowers for, you know, Valentine's Day or anniversary and stuff like that, that there isn't that connection. Now you add on to that there's that bilateral stimulation of hearing, you know, tapping onto the keyboard, and then also the hearing of it and the visual stimulation. And you've now kind of reinforced that. And I've got some grave concerns about that.
Hypnotize some of these folks who are addicted to their electronics, Jan.
Well, actually, I'm working with it now that you say it. And again, not to hit that resistance, but I had some wonderful, wonderful training the past few years with a pediatric pulmonologist out of New York, and I think he's onto something. And what he does, years ago, you can have automatic writing in hypnosis. But what he does is he communicates with the children and the teenagers by keyboard. So, and I just started this for my Christmas present was a new computer system to do this. I think he's onto something. And because again, you're having that bilateral stimulation of the keyboard. You're hearing it, and visually you're seeing it. And it's amazing. You put the young person into a trance. They've learned how to be able to do that, and they know that this is what you're going to be working on, and you put them in trance, and you do this automatic writing on the keyboard. He's having phenomenal results, absolutely phenomenal results. It's amazing out in New York.
Could I turn to autism for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible, the numbers. Do you deal with autistic children at all?
I work more with their families.
Okay.
And again, one of the concerns in one of the new research is showing that they may be lacking those mirroring cells of picking up on cues. They may have, a child may have it with their mother, but they may not have it with other people, and again with Asperger's.
Okay. Yes. Which is a lesser category of autism, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And some very pivotal research is showing that if you can stimulate that area of the brain, electrically stimulate it, that these children are responding very, very well, and that gives them a great deal of hope. As I said, I work with families also too.
It must be really tough on families with autistic children.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And again, you know, with the economy, it's very costly now too, because you know some of those programs are non-existent, or they're harder to
Right.
find. One of the things, you know, in working with couples where one may have kind of tinges of Asperger, is that I see it as a continuum. We're all special and we are all unique, but oftentimes we can kind of, you know, map out on this continuum, and those at this end are what I call the black and white thinkers. They need to see it, they're black and white. And many times our accountants, our bankers, our engineers, project managers, they fall over here. And then we all fall kind of over here, and over here are more of our artists. They see it in black and white. They over here see it in rainbows of colors and stuff like that. And oftentimes opposites attract. What we now know is that individuals over at this end have more sensitivity cells and more mirroring cells. They pick up. Therapists are over here, teachers, artists, massage therapists, Reiki therapists. they're able to pick up on cues, and they have more sensitivity cells. They, however, cannot see a gruesome movie, the blood and gore, because they're connecting with the victim. And so they have a harder time. Opposites attract. And I oftentimes see my role as a translator in that, and honoring that they are very different, and to see that they can complement each other very well. And many spouses, and typically it'll be the man, and again, not all the time, but many times the male will be here and the female here. And to honor that, she may need to connect with other female friends that also have those sensitivity and mirroring cells. And that it's not that he doesn't care about her, because typically she'll come in and say he doesn't love me. And he says, of course I love you. You know, I show it to you all the time. Well, yes, he does, but she's not feeling it, right? Okay, and many times too, he wants to see a black and white the bullet points. She may speak in volumes, and I encourage her to honor that, but to speak in volumes with somebody who will also connect on that level. And so once she speaks in volumes, I say the funnel approach, funnel it down to those key factors. And that's when you get the two together and you talk, and they're able to live in harmony, okay, in their household.
That's a neat way of explaining that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're just about out of time. I want to just shift gears here for a minute. Your son was on with an engineer
Yes.
a couple of months ago, and so please extend congratulations to him, because we just read the other day that they're advancing in this
Oh, yes.
robotics competition.
Yes.
They
And,
won their first round.
And they are a rookie. They were at the regional down in Milwaukee. They got rookie team, and that allowed them to be eligible to go to Atlanta, Georgia.
Right.
And that's really a plus. And that is something so hopeful for Oshkosh. It
Yes.
really is,
Yeah.
because this is all school-wide. We have children from West, from North, from Lourdes, from homeschool, Winneconne and Omro, and to be able, and the caliber. And when you walked into this big arena, you knew where Oshkosh was. We had these bright turquoise, it's called Caribbean blue, that just stuck out, but also to the energy. And my son, Bryce.
So your
does
son is
have
Bryce?
Yes.
Oh, I did.
Yes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's got a lot of energy,
Yeah.
and he did the roller coaster. And so now this weekend, they left yesterday to go up to Minnesota
Yeah.
for that regional. And they'll leave the Tuesday after Easter to go down to Atlanta, Georgia. So they're pumped. Plus, Dean came, and the founder of First Robotics visited Milwaukee, and so there's pictures of Mr. Dean Kamen, and people know him for developing the Segway. And he visited. And so there's pictures of him in the pit area, and so the boys were just stunned, and the gals were stunned that he came, and all they had, there's literally the shirts on their back, so he signed their shirts.
The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, does it? Yeah?
Well, congratulate
Yeah,
them for
very
us.
much so.
And
Yeah.
you know, after this competition's all done, we're going to have them back,
Yes.
even if it's just for 15 minutes
Yeah.
to talk
Well, we
about
want
their
to see that.
experiences. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
and thanks for
Thank
you know
you.
sticking with us for the hour
It's been
here.
a fun hour.
So.
Thank you.
And it went fast,
Yeah,
didn't it?
it did.
It did.
Thank
All right.
you so much.
And we'll have you back again at some point, I'm sure, too. So, thanks to everyone at home. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.